his wife isn't Indian, his property is Indian, because that's how he seems to view it. He seems to view women's purpose as baby factories.
Mm-hmm.
And he just put down a lease on this particular baby factory. The idea that we don't see them at events together, and even when they are together, there's no love there.
Steve, I don't even know where to start. Obviously, I want to talk about your tour throughout the country. Looking forward to seeing you in Vegas in a few months. What do you make? I mean, it is almost comical, right? Where we're at as a country right now. What do you make of the first 3 weeks of Donald Trump's administration? I know that's a loaded question.
I know that they are purposefully doing so many things we can't keep up. I know that is part of it. They're flooding the zone, but it's like each new thing is awful. One of the things I was talking about today was when Donald Trump released 2.2 billion gallons of water that was needed for Central Valley of California. And I posted a joke about it today. I posted a joke saying that he released 2.2 billion gallons of water, and yet Ben Shapiro's wife is unaffected. Fun little stupid joke.
It's funny, though. Very funny.
The amount of sycophants in the comments who are trying to justify not only releasing water 200 miles away from the fires, releasing water after the fires were contained. This was after.
Right.
This was not during, this was after.
Yeah.
The amount of people who are not only defending the move, but blaming it somehow on Gavin Newsom.
Or DEI. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's DEI. I mean, it is DEI because we have included someone as president who does not deserve that job.
True.
So it is DEI in a way. Although when they use the word DEI, it's code for something different than actual diversity.
Steve, what goes through your mind after this horrible plane crash when Donald Trump holds the press conference, speaking of DEI, and he starts mentioning DEI without even knowing who the pilots are, yes, knowing nothing about what happened? I mean, what goes through your mind when you see something like that? Do you laugh? Do you cry? What goes through your mind?
The thing that bothers me the most, I think, is the people who are like, oh, the punchlines write themselves. It's like, first of all, no, they don't, because this is beyond satire. This is, you cannot, if I wrote this script a decade ago, I'd have been laughed out of the room at how unbelievable this is. First of all, the lack of compassion for the 65 people who died, horrific. Second of all, to blame this on anything before you know what's going on. And also to be the guy who just fired half the FAA.
Right.
Who just gutted the FAA and then just be like, no, it must have been because of something else. Yeah, like, I want to know how many plane crashes do we need? How many plane crashes? How many schools shutting down? How many government officials to be paid $10 billion to not come to work? How much of that do we need before someone goes, my vote might have been a mistake?
Such a good point. And so many of these MAGA supporters out there refuse to admit they're wrong about anything. What do you make of this story in the last 24 hours, Steve, where you have this former DOJ employee who said, normalize Indian hate? Just for the record, I was racist before it was cool. And among other things, terrible things, right? And JD Vance today on social media, keep in mind, his wife is Indian, and he's saying this guy should be rehired. We shouldn't ruin his life. Like, what do you make of that?
Well, from what I see of how JD Vance treats women and talks about women, his wife isn't Indian, his property is Indian, because that's how he seems to view it. He seems to view women's purpose as baby factories. And he just put down a lease on this particular baby factory. The idea that we don't see them at events together, and even when they are together, there's no love there. And I don't know what their personal relationship is like, but I know that if a friend of mine was dating a guy who treated her the way that JD Vance treats her in public, not even private, in public, I'd have said run. Right. So I don't think that JD Vance is offended, and especially because, if anything, I believe he would I'm guessing in his wedding toast there was a phrase, one of the good ones.
It wouldn't surprise me either. If you're just joining us, very, very talented comic, Steve Hofstetter, joining us on the show. So Steve, you are kind of like the master, not kind of, you are at dealing with hecklers. I love your videos on social media, and there's a reason why you're so popular, because you're so good at what you do. Are you prepared for the next 4 years? Because you've had to deal with these hecklers for a good amount of your career, at least for the last 7 or 8 years, probably your whole life, but MAGA hecklers in particular. Are you prepared that it's going to be maybe worse than ever for you to be going up there and these MAGA hecklers, who you've never been scared of, you destroy them? But what are you prepared for going forward now with how crazy things are and how divided we are as a country?
Well, a little something happened last week where someone online, someone on Facebook under, one of these secret accounts or whatever, where they change their name and their picture and all that stuff, sent me a very specific death threat, a threat saying that if I show up to my Arlington show, he'll be there armed, and I don't know his name and I don't know what he looks like, and etc. But here's the thing. My wife is a millennial woman. And I don't know if you've ever dated a millennial woman, but if they want to learn something on the internet about you, they will. And so within a half hour, we had his girlfriend's name, his photo, his mother's name, her home address, her home phone number, et cetera, et cetera. And I, of course, sent it to the cops, sent it to the FBI, sent it to the venue. And I also posted a video, by the way, hi, David. I also posted a video saying, we do know who you are. You are not as clever as you think you are. You are not as hidden as you think you are. And I think a lot of these people's terrible views, as awful as they are, crumble in the face of their own cowardice. And so if someone is going to interrupt a show and say something stupid, well, it'd be pretty easy to defeat them. And in fact, something that I'm going to do for the first time on my channel, I'm probably announcing it officially tomorrow, but I could tell you ahead of time.
Thank you.
All the time people send me these, why don't you debate me? You don't know what you're talking about. Just come debate me, which is hilarious because these are the same people who were bullying the debate team in high school. I said yes. I said yes to someone. And I am going to have a professional, reasoned conversation on my channel. We are going to allow fans to ask questions live. And if they want to tell me I don't know what I'm talking about, and I'm doing no prep for it whatsoever, by the way.
Right.
And if they want to tell me that I don't know what I'm talking about, well, let's see how that holds up.
All right. So what time does this start? Because I got to check this out myself. This is very exciting because, I used to have a co-host years back and you just destroyed him on the show. And I'm just sitting there laughing.
I remember.
I don't think there's anybody better at this than you. I really mean that genuinely, at just destroying MAGA with facts. I do it on my show every day. You are the master of it. What time does this start tomorrow? Is it on all your channels? Is it on like YouTube and everywhere live, or what? Where do you plan on?
So the way we're going to do a live Zoom,
okay,
and then we're going to post it later on.
Gotcha.
So it'll simultaneously be a fundraiser for the Steel City Arts Foundation. So the ticket money will go there. And it's going to be February 20th, 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific. And, I wanted to do it at a time where people from other countries could also join in to see just how in trouble we are. The idea is that, people can join it live, or if they choose to, they can just, hold out and watch it later.
I love that idea. I wanted to ask you this. Do you feel like at all on TikTok, wherever you are, do you feel like you're being censored at all? Because you're so popular on social media. I think YouTube is great, by the way. And there are media entities that are fantastic. And then there are media entities like Rumble that let people use the N-word, which obviously you and I would never do because we're not racist. But do you feel like you have been censored at all, particularly since Donald Trump took office again?
Actually, my stuff is a little bit less censored since then because I was getting hit by, not being able to, this is terrestrial radio, right?
Yes.
Yeah, there were some words that you can't say on broadcast that I tend to say in my videos. And so I was being hit by that more so than being political. Mm-hmm. Because my stuff isn't just, here's a political thought. I would get hit more for the other stuff. But also, I find that in times like this, um, a jerk like me who speaks up for those who are too afraid to speak, my stuff tends to get more eyeballs than less. Now, I don't know what it would get if the algorithm wasn't pulling strings. I don't know. Who knows? Maybe instead of 1 million views, a video would have gotten 10 million views. But
Right.
I deal with what I have, and I just get louder.
Steve, this is kind of a loaded question, but
all right, I can't wait.
But I'm curious to get your thoughts on this. There's a lot of reasons why, but why do you think Kamala Harris lost? What do you think are the reasons, in your opinion, Steve, why she lost?
All right. The main reason why she lost is because we are still a racist and sexist country. But that's a broad reason. Another reason we lost is because the Democrats are terrible at messaging. And when for a year, when the right was saying things like, oh, well, the reason groceries are so expensive, they should have just been like, stop lying right now. Stop lying. The groceries are more expensive because when the supply chain was difficult, companies use that as an excuse to raise prices and keep them there. And because your donors run those companies, you did nothing about it. That's why groceries are more expensive. They did not do any of that messaging. Instead, they were just like, but what about good vibes? And like, good vibes are not enough. There are people who are struggling financially who are going to grasp onto anything that they are told that could make their life better. And the Democrats were not playing into that. I think Biden promising us a one-term presidency and then waffling about that was difficult, because Harris only had 2 months to campaign. Right. So that was really tough. And then, I also think that it has been 3 decades of defunding education, of vote suppression. The amount of states that were close enough that would have been flipped if people hadn't been disenfranchised. And so look, it's a combination of a lot of things. Oh, and also these idiot third-party rebels, these people who are like, I don't know anything about politics and that makes me cool. Like, no, you are a first semester poli-sci student and you know nothing. And that's okay. So you will learn more, but it doesn't make, it's the same people who were supporting Bernie, and then when he dropped out, voted for Gary Johnson, someone who is ideologically opposite of Bernie. But they were like, but this is also someone who's not mainstream.
Yeah.
And
it's so true.
It was a lot of that. And I hope that, look, I don't want any bad things to befall these people, but I hope that the Latino community that supported Trump understands what they did. I hope that the Palestinian community that supported Trump or Jill Stein understands what they did. I hope the suburban white young college students who decided to partner with either of those people because they think it makes them an ally, and no, not thinking does not make you an ally. I hope they understand what they did, because we're in hell now.
Yes, we are. And you're so right about that. If you recall, Steve, the people outside of the DNC that were chanting Genocide Joe, who I would imagine voted for Donald Trump, what are they saying now? He's talking about taking over a sovereign nation and displacing 2 million Palestinians. I'm wondering, where are all these people now? But so I'm not asking you, Steve, to crap on any other comedians, because this is the industry that you're in. However, maybe we can make an exception for this guy. I don't know, Rob Schneider, who I think is an utter douchebag. What do you make of some of these comics that are so bigoted in nature, in not only some of the stuff they say on stage, but not even trying to be funny, just the stuff they say on social media about trans people and gay people and minorities? What do you make of a guy like a Rob Schneider? And I don't know, are they trying to become more popular again by saying crazy things? Like, what do you make of some of these people like the Rob Schneiders of the world?
Well, it's a combination of a couple things. First of all, someone who was progressive 40 years ago that hasn't changed their views at all is now right-wing, because society moves. And there are some people who still fashion themselves cutting edge, and they're not cutting edge. They were cutting edge. There are also people who were just always hacks. And what wasn't, what was like a little hacky then has become super hacky now.
Mhm.
Any comedian and I don't care what they believe in the rest of their life, any comedian who does my pronouns are blank and blank, shut up. Even if you didn't believe in horrible things, even if you weren't marginalizing millions of people, you are a hack. And like, I think the saddest thing to me about this all is that it's comedy's fault. The reason this happened, when you ask why did Harris lose, I gave you specifics about that election.
Mm-hmm.
But the reality is that so much of this, like I've always viewed comedy as a really powerful thing. I mean, comedy is what finally brought Bill Cosby down, even though comedy is what made him, have the power to do what he did. But Hannibal Buress telling that one joke in Philly changed everything. And comedy has the ability to cut through a lot. And unfortunately, this bro-y Rogan sphere that has sprung up, this saying something awful makes me a rebel garbage that has happened, the people who think that they're pushing the envelope while casually using the same words that got Lenny Bruce arrested, it's their fault. And that hurts. And some of these people I know personally and used to consider friends. And it hurts to see that.
Were you friends with Rob Schneider? I'm just curious.
No, I've met Rob. I wasn't friends with Rob specifically, but there's, there's some people in that Rogan sphere. There's some people and I mean, I was on Rogan years ago.
Yeah.
And which is always funny when people are like, oh, a woke was like, you could never do Rogan. I'm like, episode 805, you idiot. I just never went back.
Right. I mean, I just think Rob Schneider's the worst. And there are people on social media that have big platforms, obviously, that are very, very dangerous. If you're just joining us, Steve Hofstetter, he's going to be coming to Las Vegas, I believe, in May. Let's talk a little bit about that. You got a big tour, right? You're all over the country. You're a very busy guy. You're literally everywhere. Do you ever get burnt out? I mean, if you're not putting up great videos and social media content, you're all over the country. Do you ever get tired? I guess that's my question.
Yeah, I'm often tired. I'm often burnt out, but then I have time to refresh. I have a wonderful support system. My wife is absolutely amazing, and that helps a great deal. I tour with friends, which helps also because, when you tour with friends, even when things don't go right, it's still fun because then you laugh about how bad it was. And like, look, this is something where, I have something like 130 cities this year.
Yep.
Okay. How many days a year do most people go to work? So yes. True. Am I working most of the day from the time I wake up, because social media is technically work and writing and coming up with the ideas and etc. But, the reality is that I'm very lucky to be able to do what I do. The travel is the hard part. Right. It's comedians are truckers with jokes. Yeah. And so getting from place to place is the difficult part. But, once you get there, a good hotel and, a nice meal and a great show with an awesome audience. I mean, one of the things that I'd say the thing I'm proudest of in my career is who my fans are. And, I genuinely like doing those shows. And so it's hard to get burned out when you're doing what you love.
Yeah. I would say in show business, you need a little bit of luck, but I would also say, it helps to be really good at what you do. And clearly you're one of the best in the business.
Thank you.
So you're going to be coming to town in May. Hopefully we can catch up then, Steve. I can't wait to watch that debate. You debate anybody on that's a MAGA supporter. It's must see. I've seen it myself at your shows, and I would recommend anybody go on any of your channels, YouTube and anywhere else to see it. Before I let you go, can you give out, not that you need any extra promotion because you're one of the most popular people around, especially when it comes to social media, but where do people go to see your tour, where you're going to be at? I know you have your website. Where would you recommend people go if they've never seen you before?
So just stevehofstetter.com has all the tour dates and the ticket links also. Don't just Google my tour because you'll get these secondary resellers who
Okay.
All the time people have been like, your tickets are $400. I'm like, no, they're not. No, they're not. A thief is trying to charge $400.
Yeah.
So yeah, go to my website, but it's also at Steve Hofstetter on every major social media except X, because that place is a cesspool.
Yep.
And I am happily off that.
And you're going to be at Wise Guys here in Las Vegas in a few months. Okay. I lied. One more question, and then we'll let you go. And Steve,
Brian, I got time for you. It's fine.
Really appreciate your time, by the way. I know how busy you are. I don't think I've ever asked you this question. If you were in a room alone with Donald Trump, you and Donald Trump, I'm curious, if at all, what would you say to him?
Could I film it?
If you could film it, whatever you want to do, but it's just you and Donald Trump, what would you say to him? I'm curious.
If I could film it without him knowing I could film it, all I would have to do is agree with him, because he is so narcissistic that the second someone compliments him, the second someone agrees with him, and I would tell him I'd be like, oh yeah, I think these types of people are out to get you. And then I would just let him talk, because the thing that could actually take down Donald Trump, if NBC ever had the guts, to release the full footage from The Apprentice, the idea that he hasn't said 1,000 different horrific things that would finally stick. Yes. Is preposterous. So I think all I would do is, I know that you can't ask him a real question. He just makes stuff up. He lies. So what I would do is I would lean in and see how much I could get him to admit.
I think that's brilliant. I would hope that maybe one day that could happen, but I would imagine Donald Trump is probably more of a fan of Rob Schneider than yours, for obvious stupid reasons. Steve, you're the best, my friend. You're one of the best in the business. Always appreciate it when you've always taken the time to do this show, and maybe we could get you in studio when you're in town, but can't wait for your show all over the country. Check him out, Steve Hofstetter. Steve, appreciate you, my friend. Thanks so much for coming on, and stay safe out there.
Yeah, thanks for having me, and thanks and congrats on both, the syndication and not having Rob Schneider as a co-host.
Yeah, thank God. Thank God I don't have Rob as a co-host anymore. Steve, you're the best. Take care, my friend. Good to see you, bud. There you go. That's Steve Hofstetter, everybody.